The Yuma Desert doesn't forgive mistakes. At 0600 hours on a Tuesday morning in late June, the temperature already clawed past 98 degrees. Heat rose in waves from the pale dirt. The kind of heat that makes a man question his choices. The kind that turns breath into labor and sweat into salt maps across skin. The Naval Special Warfare Training ground stretched for miles in every direction. Nothing but scrub brush and firing ranges and the distant purple smudge of mountains that looked like they'd been painted onto the sky with a dry brush. The air smelled like gun oil and hot brass and the particular emptiness of places where men come to prove things. Senior Chief Wade Kincaid stood behind the primary spotting scope, jaw tight as Riverstone. 51 years old, 28 of those years in the teams. His face had been carved by salt water and desert sun into something that looked permanent, immovable. His ribbons told stories in a language most civilians couldn't read. 2 bronze stars, a silver star with Valor device, scars that ran deeper than the visible ones. He'd watched 13 shooters fail this morning, 13 elite snipers, Navy SEALs, Force Recon Marines, Army Special Forces operators with kill counts that would make civilians sick. Men who'd taken shots in Ramadi and Helmand Province and places that didn't appear on maps. Men who understood windage and elevation and bullet drop the way most people understood breathing. Every single one had missed. The target sat 3,600 meters downrange, just over 2 miles of hostile desert air. An E-type silhouette, man-sized, steel, set up on a ridge that shimmered in the morning heat like a mirage, like something that might not actually exist. At that distance, the physics stopped being helpful and started being cruel. Bullet drop measured in stories, nearly 80 feet of fall. The round would arc like a rainbow before gravity dragged it back to Earth. Wind drift could shove that bullet 8 feet off course. More if the wind decided to play games. And it always played games. Then there was Coriolis effect, the Earth spinning beneath the bullet during its 4-second flight. Spin drift, humidity, barometric pressure. A dozen variables that compounded into something that felt less like science and more like prayer. Staff Sergeant Flint Draven had come closest, 40 meters long, 30 meters right. He'd stood from his rifle with a grin that showed too many teeth. 34 years old, built like someone who spent serious time in the weight room and wanted you to know it. Tribal ink crawled up his neck from beneath his collar, the kind of tattoos that were supposed to look dangerous. 40 meters, he'd said to the group. Anybody want to do better? Nobody had. Now they stood around in small clusters, drinking water from camelbacks, discussing wind calls and elevation holds, and all the reasons why 3,600 meters was a goddamn unreasonable ask. Their voices carried that particular tone men use when they've failed at something and need to convince themselves it wasn't really possible anyway. Kincaid checked his watch, 06:15. She should be here by now. He'd received the call 3 days ago from Captain Rowan Pierce at Nightfall Command. The voice on the phone had been careful, measured. The way people talk when they're giving orders that aren't really orders, but you better damn well follow them anyway. Wade, we're sending someone for the advanced precision trials. Petty Officer First Class. Name's Thorne, Kira Thorne. A pause that felt loaded. She's cleared for the full course. Whatever happens, she runs it. Understand. Kincaid had understood the words. He hadn't understood the weight behind them. Now he watched the access road waiting for dust. Draven appeared at his shoulder, still riding the high of his near miss. Senior Chief, 14th attempt when Kincaid didn't look at him. Soon. Because I'm thinking maybe we need to reassess the parameters. 3,600 in these conditions is pushing what's humanly possible. It's been done. By who? Kincaid finally turned, met Draven's eyes. By people who had to. That should have ended it, but Draven had the kind of confidence that didn't recognize stop signs. All due respect, Senior Chief, I've been instructing advanced marksmanship for 6 years. I've seen the best shooters in JSOC. None of them are making this shot in current conditions. Then maybe you need to see someone better. The words came from behind them. Female voice. West Texas in the vowels. Calm as Sunday morning. Both men turned. She stood 20 feet away, and Kincaid had no idea how she'd gotten that close without him hearing. She wore standard fatigues, desert pattern, washed enough times that the edges had gone soft. The sleeves showed wear at the elbows. The knees showed use. The kind of worn-in that came from actual field time, not from trying to look tactical. 5'10", athletic in the way distance runners are athletic. Lean, economical, dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun. A thin scar cut through her left eyebrow, pale against tan skin. dark eyes that didn't blink much. She carried a rifle case in her left hand, Pelican Storm case, hard-sided, weathered, covered in airline baggage tags and the kind of scuff marks that told stories about cargo holds in desert airstrips and long trips to bad places. Kincaid's first thought was that she looked tired. Not sleepy tired, combat tired, the kind that lives in the bones. His second thought was that she moved like someone who understood silence as a tactical advantage. Draven recovered first. His smile came back, but it had edges now. And you are, she set the rifle case down gently, like it contained something that mattered. Petty Officer First Class Kira Thorne. I'm on the roster. Right. Draven's tone shifted into something that was almost friendly. Almost. The consultation. The trial, she corrected. No heat in it, just correction. My mistake. Draven's eyes tracked over her, assessing, dismissing. They didn't mention on the brief that our consultant was... He trailed off, leaving the sentence to do its own work. Kira's expression didn't change. Was what Staff Sergeant? Nothing, just surprised is all. These are Tier 1 precision trials. Usually they send people who can make the shot, she finished. I know. Somewhere in the group of snipers, someone laughed. Not loud, just enough to carry. Kincaid watched the exchange with the same attention he'd give to ordnance disposal. Careful, looking for what might explode. He'd known this was coming. Had known it from the tone in Pierce's voice. Had known it from the way the paperwork came through channels that didn't usually handle personnel transfers. Had known it from his own gut, which after 28 years had developed instincts about when the chain of command was setting something up. He just hadn't known exactly what. Petty Officer Thorne, his voice cut through the desert air with the authority of someone who'd been giving orders since before most of these operators were born. Senior Chief Wade Kincaid, I run this range. She turned to him. Her eyes found his and held. No challenge in it, no deference either. Just the look of someone who understood rank structure and didn't need to perform about it. Senior Chief, you're on the brief for advanced precision trials. That confirmed. Yes, Senior Chief. And you understand what that entails? We're testing extreme range engagements, 3,600 meters minimum, real-world scenarios, no gimmies. I understand. You qualified on the MK-13, among others. Kincaid waited, but she didn't elaborate. Didn't start listing credentials or throwing around deployment stories. Didn't do any of the things young operators usually did when they were trying to prove they belonged. She just stood there waiting. It made him curious and suspicious, and something else he couldn't quite name. Draven stepped forward, inserting himself back into the center of the conversation. Senior Chief, with respect, maybe Petty Officer Thorne would be more comfortable observing from the tower. The range environment can be pretty intense. A lot of brass flying, noise, heat. Not exactly. I've been in worse, Kira said. Still no heat. Still just facts. Draven's smile went thin. I'm sure you have. I'm just thinking about safety protocols, making sure everyone's in the right place for their skill level. What's my skill level, Staff Sergeant? The question hung there. Draven opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Kincaid like he might provide backup. Kincaid said nothing. This was getting interesting. I'm just saying, Draven tried again, that Tier 1 long-range precision isn't something you walk into cold. These guys, he gestured at the cluster of snipers, have been training for years, decades some of them, combat deployments, real-world experience, and they're struggling with these conditions. So maybe I should prove I can hang before I waste everyone's time, Kira finished. That about right. Draven's jaw tightened. I didn't say that. You were heading there. Look, I don't have a problem with... Yes, you do, she interrupted. Still calm, still matter of fact. And that's fine. I've had this conversation before. Different desert, different men, same doubts. She shifted her weight slightly. Her right hand drifted toward her left wrist. Fingers brushed against something hidden beneath her sleeve. The gesture looked automatic, unconscious, like touching a rosary. So here's how this goes, she continued. You can keep talking about what I can't do, or we can get to work and you can see what I can do. Your call, Staff Sergeant. The desert had gone quiet. Even the wind seemed to be waiting. 13 elite snipers stood watching. Some with curiosity, some with skepticism. Most with the kind of expression men wear when they're watching something unfamiliar and don't know yet if it's a threat or entertainment. Kincaid made his decision. Petty Officer Thorne, you're cleared to run the course. Same standards as everyone. No favors. Make your shots or don't. Clear, Crystal Senior Chief. Good. Stow your gear. Commander Atwood wants a brief at 0630. Observation building east side. Something shifted in Kira's posture. Just slightly. Commander Atwood is here. Flew in last night. Said she needed to observe personally. Kira nodded slowly, like pieces were falling into place that she'd expected but hoped wouldn't. She picked up her rifle case and walked toward the equipment staging area. Her gait was even, measured, no hurry, no hesitation. The kind of walk that covered distance efficiently without looking like effort. Draven watched her go. His expression had gone complicated. Anger mixed with confusion mixed with something that might have been embarrassment. Senior Chief, I don't know what's going on here, but if this is some kind of PR stunt, careful, Kincaid said softly. Finish that sentence, you're going to say something you regret. Draven stopped, looked at Kincaid. You know who she is. I know enough. Which is that Captain Pierce sent her, which means she's here for a reason, which means we're going to find out what that reason is. Kincaid turned back to the spotting scope, adjusting the focus out of habit more than necessity. The target shimmered at 3,600 meters heat haze, making it dance. Draven lingered. Senior Chief, you know my record. You know I'm not... I know your record, Sergeant. I also know your brother's record, and I know how he died. And I know you've been carrying that for 4 years now. Draven went still. That's not... It is, Kincaid said, not unkindly. And I get it, but that's your ghost. Don't make her carry it too. He walked away before Draven could respond. The observation building was prefabricated metal, government contract work, built to withstand desert heat and desert wind and nothing else. Inside, air conditioning rattled and wheezed, fighting a losing battle against June in Arizona. Commander Bryn Atwood stood at the window watching the range through polarized glass. She wore khakis pressed sharp enough to draw blood. Her ribbons included a Purple Heart and a Defense Meritorious Service Medal. 42 years old, Naval Intelligence. 3 tours in Syria attached to JSOC. She'd been widowed 5 years ago when an IED turned her husband's convoy into scrap metal in grief. She didn't turn when Kincaid entered. She here, Atwood asked. Just arrived. How'd it go? About how you'd expect. Draven's already flexing. Now Atwood turned. Her face was composed, but Kincaid had known her long enough to read the tension in her shoulders. He gave her a hard time. Nothing she couldn't handle. Girl's got a spine. Woman, Atwood corrected. She's 31. Combat veteran. Widow. She's earned woman. Fair point. Atwood moved to a table where files sat in neat stacks. Top secret markings, classification stamps. The kind of paperwork that made careers and ended them. Wade, what I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. Understood. Kira Thorne, 12 years Navy, started as Master at Arms, qualified for SEAL support operations in 2018. Worked as designated marksman with Team 3. 89 confirmed kills across 4 deployments. Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen. Kincaid's eyebrows went up. 89 confirmed, actual numbers probably higher. That's world class. Yes, it is, Atwood opened one of the files. But that's not why she's here. She slid a photograph across the table. Black and white, surveillance quality. It showed a man in his early 30s, hard face, kind eyes. SEAL trident visible on his uniform. Gideon Thorne, SEAL Team 3, 107 confirmed kills. 15 years in the teams. Sniper, instructor. By all accounts, one of the best long-range shooters we've ever produced. Past tense. Kincaid heard it clearly. Blood in action. 2 years ago, northern Iraq. Operation went sideways. He took a round meant for his spotter. Atwood paused. His spotter was Kira, his wife. Kincaid processed that. Jesus. She was there when he died, carried his body 6 kilometers to extract. Alone. Under fire. Refused to leave him behind. The air conditioning rattled. Somewhere outside, a rifle barked. Single shot. The sound of training. After Gideon died, Kira requested instructor duty. Wanted out of the field. Taught basic marksmanship at Coronado for 18 months. By all reports, she's exceptional, patient, thorough. Her students post scores 15% higher than average. So why pull her back for this? Atwood closed the file. Because 3 months ago, NavSpecWar put out a proposal. Replace human sniper programs with AI-assisted drone platforms. Full autonomous targeting, machine learning, predictive ballistics, the whole package. That's insane. That's budget conscious. Drones don't need training, don't need sleep, don't collect paychecks or file disability claims, don't suffer from PTSD or make judgment errors based on stress. They also don't have instincts. don't adapt, don't understand context. You and I know that, but the bean counters don't care. They see numbers, cost-benefit analysis, and the numbers say AI is cheaper. Kincaid felt something cold settling in his chest. So this is a test. This is a last chance. Atwood's voice went hard. We have 90 minutes to prove that human snipers still have value, that experience and judgment and instinct matter, that you can't replace a lifetime of training with algorithms. And if we can't, then in 5 years, every sniper program in the Navy gets phased out, replaced with drone operators sitting in air-conditioned rooms in Virginia, flying missions over fiber optic cable. The full weight of it landed on Kincaid's shoulders, heavy, permanent. Why her? Why Kira? Because she's young enough that they can't dismiss her as outdated. She's skilled enough that her credentials are undeniable. She's been trained by one of the best. And because, Atwood's voice softened slightly, because she needs this. Needs what? Purpose. She's been going through the motions since Gideon died, teaching, existing, but not living. This gives her a reason, a mission, one last chance to prove that what her husband taught her matters, that his legacy continues. Kincaid looked out the window. Kira was at the equipment table opening her rifle case. Even from this distance, he could see the careful, methodical way she worked. Checking, verifying, trusting nothing. What's the actual test? 6 scenarios, 6 different long-range engagements, each one designed to test specific skills. Reading conditions, patience, judgment, system failure protocols, extreme distance. Each scenario is based on actual missions from her file. She demonstrates, she teaches, she shows why a human operator beats a computer. And the finale, the 3,600-meter shot that just ate 13 of our best operators. She makes it, she wins, she proves the case. And if she doesn't, Atwood's silence was answer enough. Kincaid rubbed his jaw. 28 years in the teams, and he'd never felt stakes quite like this. This wasn't about one operator's career. This was about the future of the craft itself. Does she know about the real test? I'm about to tell her. She gonna be okay with it. She's a professional, and she understands legacy. Atwood picked up the file, squaring the edges with precise movements. Besides, she already said yes. A knock at the door. Kira stood in the framed desert sun backlighting her. She'd removed her blouse, revealing a tan t-shirt underneath. Simple. Worn. On her left wrist, partially visible beneath the sleeve, was the edge of a tattoo. Compass rose. Detailed. The kind of ink that meant something. Commander, Senior Chief, you wanted to see me? Atwood gestured to a chair. Come in, Kira. We need to talk about why you're really here. Kira stepped inside. She didn't sit, just stood, weight-balanced, hands loose at her sides, ready for whatever came next. I figured this wasn't just a qualification run, she said quietly. Captain Pierce doesn't pull instructors off duty for routine trials. No, he doesn't. Atwood laid it out clean, no sugarcoating. The AI proposal, the budget pressure, the 90-minute window. 6 scenarios. Prove human judgment mattered or watch the craft die. Kira listened without interrupting. Her expression stayed neutral, but her right hand drifted to her left wrist. Fingers found the compass tattoo, pressed gently against it like checking for a pulse. When Atwood finished, silence filled the room. Finally, Kira spoke. What happens if I fail? Then they shut it down, all of it. Human sniper programs across naval special warfare. 5-year phase-out, replaced with autonomous systems. That's not what I asked. Kira's voice stayed level. I asked what happens to me if I fail. Atwood met her eyes. Nothing happens to you. This goes in a classified file. Gets buried. You go back to teaching at Coronado. You'll be fine. But everyone else won't be. No, they won't. Kira turned to the window. Outside, Draven was holding court with a group of snipers, gesturing, probably telling war stories, probably talking about how he'd almost made the impossible shot. Gideon used to say something, Kira said, still watching the range. He said the rifle was just metal and wood and glass. Said what mattered was the operator, the judgment, the thousands of hours of training that turned instinct into precision. Her fingers pressed harder against the tattoo. He said that's what machines can't learn. Not really. They can calculate, but they can't know. She turned back to Atwood. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Proving he was right. Proving you're both right, Atwood said gently. Proving that what he taught you matters. That it can't be replaced by code. Kira was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried something Kincaid couldn't quite identify. Determination, maybe, or grief sharpened into purpose. 6 scenarios, 6 lessons, then the final shot. Yes. What's the setup? Each scenario recreates a mission from your file. You demonstrate the technique. You explain the thinking. You show them why experience beats programming. Think of it as teaching, just compressed. And Draven the others. They're your audience and your jury. Convince them, you convince the Navy. Kira's laugh was short, dry. No pressure. Can you do it? The question hung in the air-conditioned air. Kira's hand left her wrist, dropped to her side. She rolled her shoulders like shrugging into gear that weighed too much but had to be carried anyway. Gideon made me promise something before he died, she said. Made me swear I'd keep teaching, that I'd pass on what he taught me, that I wouldn't let the craft die with him. She looked at Atwood, then at Kincaid. Her eyes were dry, hard, certain. So yeah, I can do it, because I have to. Atwood nodded. Then let's get started. You have 90 minutes to change history. They walked back out into the furnace heat of the Yuma morning. The sun had climbed higher. The temperature had climbed with it. Heat waves turned the distant mountains into watercolor smears. The 13 snipers had gathered near the primary firing line, waiting, curious, skeptical. Draven stood at the front, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Kira walked toward them with Atwood and Kincaid flanking her. Her rifle case swung gently in her left hand. Her boots crunched on desert hardpan. Steady, even. The walk of someone who'd covered miles under worse circumstances than this. Kincaid called them to order. Listen up. Change of program. Petty Officer Thorne is here to demonstrate advanced precision techniques. You're gonna watch. You're gonna learn. You're gonna shut up and pay attention. Clear. A chorus of "Yes, Senior Chief" echoed back. Atwood stepped forward, what you're about to see isn't just marksmanship, it's mastery. Petty Officer Thorne has agreed to walk you through 6 real-world engagements from her operational history. 6 different scenarios, 6 different lessons, each one designed to show you what separates good shooters from exceptional ones. Draven's hand went up. Ma'am, with respect, we're all combat veterans here. We've all taken long-range shots under pressure. What's she gonna show us that we don't already know? Kira set her rifle case down, looked at Draven, smiled slightly. It didn't reach her eyes. The difference between making the shot and missing Staff Sergeant, between going home and coming home in a box, between trusting technology and trusting what 1,000 hours behind the glass taught you. She knelt beside her case, opened it. Inside, nestled in custom foam, was a Barrett MRAD, multi-role adaptive design, chambered in .375 Chaytak, the kind of rifle that cost more than a decent used car and could reach out past 2 miles when everything went right. But what made everyone lean forward slightly was the engraving on the stock. True North. Kira's fingers traced the letters. Gentle, like touching something holy. This was my husband's rifle, she said quietly. Gideon Thorne. Some of you might have heard of him. SEAL Team 3, 15 years in the teams. Sniper instructor. Call sign was True North. A murmur ran through the group. Several operators exchanged glances. They'd heard the name. In the sniper community, legends got passed around like currency. He taught me everything I know about long-range precision. Not just the math, not just the procedures, but the art of it, the judgment, the patience, the 10,000 things that don't fit in manuals or algorithms. She lifted the rifle from its case, checked the chamber, verified the scope mounting, moved with the kind of muscle memory that came from repetition measured in years, not weeks. 2 years ago, Gideon died, took a round that was meant for me, spent his last 4 minutes teaching me one final lesson instead of saying goodbye. Her voice didn't waver, didn't break, just carried the weight of fact. He made me promise I'd pass on what he taught me, that I'd keep the craft alive. She looked up, met every eye in the group. So that's what I'm here to do. Teach you what he taught me. Show you why human judgment still matters. Why experience can't be programmed. Why we're not obsolete yet. Kira stood rifle in hand. 6 missions, 6 lessons. And in the end, we'll see if 3,600 meters is really impossible, or if 13 shooters just haven't learned the right lessons yet. Draven's expression had changed. The smirk was gone. Something else had replaced it. Curiosity, maybe, or the first edge of respect. First scenario, Atwood announced. Fallujah, Iraq, 2019, urban environment, heavy mirage, no functioning wind instruments. AI targeting system gives the shot a 31% probability of success. She nodded to Kincaid, who moved to set up the range configuration. Kira chambered around. The bolt action clicked home with mechanical precision. Gideon used to say something about impossible shots, she said, settling into position behind the rifle. He said they're only impossible until someone makes them. Then they're just difficult. The desert held its breath. Let's start with Lesson 1. How to read what you can't see. Mission 1 read the invisible. The range had been reconfigured. Target boards set up at varying distances created an urban canyon effect. 1,200 meters downrange, the silhouette sat wedged between two plywood structures meant to simulate buildings. The kind of shot that happened in Fallujah, in Mosul, in every city where war turned streets into geometry, problems and buildings into wind tunnels. Heat rose from the pale dirt in waves that turned the air into liquid. The mirage was thick, heavy, the kind that made targets dance and shimmer like they existed in some other dimension. Kira knelt beside an equipment table where someone had set up the Navy's latest AI targeting system. Tablet-sized, touchscreen, slick black case with the NAV SpecWar logo embossed on the back. The kind of gear that costs more than most people's annual salary. She tapped the screen. Numbers cascaded across the display. Range, barometric pressure, temperature, humidity, wind speed at the firing position. The AI's conclusion flashed in red text: shot probability 31%. Recommend repositioning or closer approach. 31%, Kira said to the gathered snipers. Her voice carried across the quiet range. That's what the computer says, based on measurable data, wind speed, temperature, all the numbers it can see. She set the tablet down, walked to the firing line. Her boots left prints in the dust. Problem is, at 1,200 meters in urban terrain, the numbers lie. Draven shifted his weight. His arms were still crossed. Body language defensive. How do you figure AI calculates faster than any human? Processes more variables. It does, Kira agreed, but it only processes what it can measure, what the sensors tell it, and there are things sensors can't see. She gestured downrange. Wind speed at the firing position is 8 miles per hour. Steady, from the west. The AI sees that, calculates drift, gives you a hold. She pointed at the plywood structures. But those buildings create funnels, channels. The wind doesn't move in straight lines. It curves, swirls, accelerates, and decelerates. And 1,200 meters away, that 8-mile-per-hour wind might be 15, or it might be 3, or it might have changed direction entirely. So how do you account for that? The question came from a younger SEAL, mid-20s. Eager face, still believed problems had clean solutions. Kira knelt again, this time behind her rifle, settled the stock into her shoulder, cheek to the rest, eye to the scope. You read the mirage. Through the glass, the world narrowed to a tunnel of magnification. The target sat in the center, wavering like it was underwater. But Kira wasn't looking at the target. She was looking at the air itself. Mirage isn't just distortion, she said, voice gone soft. The voice of someone teaching. It's information. The way heat rises creates bands. Layers. Each layer moves at different speeds, different directions. Her breathing slowed. Natural rhythm. Learned young. Practiced until it became automatic as heartbeat. Close to the muzzle, I'm seeing fast shimmer, left to right. That's the 8-mile-per-hour wind the sensors picked up. She adjusted the scope's focus, shifted her point of attention. But at 600 meters, the shimmer slows, changes texture, becomes almost vertical. That's a thermal rising from sun-heated concrete, creates an updraft, pushes the wind around it. Another adjustment. At 900 meters between those two buildings, the shimmer goes lateral again. But faster now, tighter waves, winds accelerating through the channel, maybe 12, 13 miles per hour. She could feel the snipers leaning forward, trying to see what she saw, trying to understand how you read something invisible. And at the target, the shimmer's chaotic, swirling multiple directions at once. That's where the wind hits the far building and bounces back, creates turbulence. Kira's hand moved to the windage turret. Precise clicks. Not what the AI had suggested, not what the wind meter said, what the mirage told her. The AI sees 8 miles per hour and calculates for that. But that's not the wind at the target, that's the wind at my face. She settled, found the natural pause between heartbeats. The moment when the body goes still, when breath stops and the world narrows to just you and the target and the physics between. The Barrett kicked. The recoil drove into her shoulder like a hammer wrapped in felt. Brutal but familiar. She rode it, came back to the glass fast enough to see the impact. Steel rang. Clear. Pure. The sound of metal on metal across 1,200 meters of hostile air. Through the scope, she watched the target swing on its mount. Dead center. Maybe 2 inches high. Perfect elevation. Perfect windage. Someone whistled low, impressed despite themselves. Kincaid's voice from the spotting scope. Impact center mass. Confirmed hit. Kira cleared her rifle, opened the bolt. Brass ejected in a golden arc and landed in the dust with a soft clink. She stood, turned to face the group. Fallujah, 2019. I was 26. First deployment with SEAL Team 3. We had a platoon pinned down in a building. Sniper in a minaret 1,200 meters northeast. Every time our guys tried to move, he dropped them. She walked to the equipment table, picked up the tablet, held it up. Our targeting computer said the shot was low probability. Recommended we reposition or call in air support, but repositioning would take 40 minutes. Air support maybe an hour. The platoon didn't have that long. A muscle jumped in her jaw, memory surfacing, unwanted but necessary. Gideon was with me, spotter. He taught me something that day that no computer ever could. He said, the numbers get you close, instinct gets you home. Read the mirage, trust what you see. She set the tablet down. So I did, ignored the AI, read the errand bands, accounted for the thermal rise from burning cars, the wind channel through the street, the turbulence where the breeze hit the minaret. Made the shot, sniper down, platoon extracted. 14 Marines went home because I learned to read what the computer couldn't measure. The desert wind picked up slightly, carried the smell of creosote and hot metal. That's lesson 1, Kira said. Technology gives you data. Experience gives you understanding. Learn to read the invisible, because in the real world, the computer doesn't have all the answers. Draven's expression had shifted slightly. The smirk was fading. Something harder had replaced it. Concentration. The look of someone recalculating assumptions. Next scenario, Atwood called. Kandahar, Afghanistan, 2020. Moving target, unpredictable pattern. Mission 2, patience under fire. The target system was different now. Downrange at 1,500 meters, a motorized sled ran on rails. Computer controlled. The target mounted on the sled moved in jerks and starts. Random intervals, no pattern. The kind of movement that made range estimation a nightmare and timing impossible. The AI tablet showed wind speed, temperature, all the usual data. But at the bottom, a new calculation. Optimal firing windows every 4.2 seconds. Shot probability, 47% during windows. Kira studied the movement. Watch the target slide left. Stop. Reverse right. Pause. Move again. Completely random. Or apparently random. 47%, she said. AI says fire during the windows when the target pauses. 4-second intervals. Fast enough reaction time you might connect. She looked at the gathered snipers. Anyone want to try it? A Marine Force recon operator raised his hand. Staff sergeant, older than most, gray at the temples. I'll take a shot, ma'am. Go ahead. He moved to the rifle, settled in, confident, efficient. The movements of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. The target slid left, paused. The Marine fired. Impact 3 feet behind where the target had been. It had started moving again during the bullet's flight time. He cycled the bolt, tried again. This time the target was already moving when he fired. Missed by 5 feet. One more attempt. Closer, but still a miss. He stood frustrated. Timing's impossible. Can't predict when it'll stop. No, Kira said. You can't, not with the AI's method. She took his place behind the rifle. Didn't chamber around, just watched through the scope. Breathing slow, counting. 1 minute passed. 2, 3. The sniper started shifting, getting restless, wondering what she was doing. 5 minutes. Draven cleared his throat. Ma'am, the scenario is quiet, Kincaid said. Not loud, but absolute. Draven shut up, but his jaw tightened, frustration building. Kira kept watching. Her breathing stayed slow, steady. The rifle barely moved. 8 minutes, 10. Then she spoke. There's a pattern, not in the movement, in the pauses. Her voice was distant, concentrated. Watch the timing between stops. It's not random, it's pseudo-random. Computer-generated, which means there's a seed algorithm, a sequence. 12 minutes now. Draven's body language changed. He leaned forward slightly, watching her work. Despite himself, he was curious. The target stops for irregular intervals, but if you track long enough, you see it. Every 90 seconds, there's a longer pause, maybe a half second longer. Just enough. She finally chambered around, settled deeper into the stock. Kandahar, 2020, Taliban commander. High-value target. We'd been tracking him for weeks. He moved between safe houses. Never the same pattern, never predictable. The target slid left, stopped, started again. I sat on a rooftop for 9 hours, watching, waiting. Young spotter with me kept saying we should take the shot. He's there, he's exposed. Fire, 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 fire. Right. Pause. Left again. But I'd been watching for hours and I saw something. Every time he moved, he checked his watch. Every single time. Like clockwork. 22 minutes. Checked his watch, looked around, moved to the next position. The target stopped. Kira didn't fire. I waited. 8.5 hours. Waited for the moment when he'd check his watch near a window, near a clear line of sight. Waited for the pattern to line up with the opportunity. The target moved again. Paused longer this time. When it happened, I had maybe a 3-second window. He looked down at his watch, head steady, perfect shot. The target paused again. Kira's finger found the trigger. Fired, 1 round, 1,700 meters, took his head off. She pressed. The Barrett roared. The bullet crossed 1,500 meters in just under 2 seconds. The target hung in its longer pause right where Kira had known it would be. Impact, center mass, perfect. Taliban commander eliminated. 0 collateral damage. Intel harvest from his safe house led to 18 more captures. She cleared the rifle, stood, turned. Lesson 2. The AI tells you to react fast, to take shots during brief windows, to move with speed. Her eyes found each sniper in turn. But speed isn't always the answer. Sometimes the answer is patience. Sometimes you sit for 9 hours watching a pattern develop. Sometimes you let targets pass because you know a better opportunity is coming. She paused. Her voice dropped. The young spotter who kept telling me to fire his name was Corporal Danny Reeves, 23 years old. 3 months later, different mission, he took a shot too fast. Didn't wait for the right moment. Exposed his position. Taliban got a bead on his muzzle flash. The weight of that sat heavy in the desert air. He died because he never learned patience. Never learned that sometimes the hardest thing is doing nothing. Kira's throat worked. I think about him. About whether I taught him enough, about whether if I'd been harder on him, meaner about the lesson, he'd still be alive. The vulnerability landed. Several snipers shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't abstract anymore. Machines don't understand patience. They calculate probabilities and tell you to act. But humans can see deeper, can recognize that sometimes waiting beats reacting. Sometimes the shot you don't take saves your life. Draven uncrossed his arms. His posture had opened slightly, the defensive wall cracking. How do you carry that? He asked. Genuine question, no snark. Wondering if you could have done more, Kira met his eyes. You don't carry it well, you carry it poorly, but you use it, you teach others. You make damn sure the next Corporal Reeves learns the lesson his predecessor didn't live to learn. Something passed between them. Recognition, shared burden. Atwood's voice broke the moment. 28 minutes elapsed. 4 scenarios remaining. She looked at Kira. Something passed between them, an acknowledgement. This was working. Next scenario, Atwood said. Syria, 2021, high-value target, time pressure, AI confidence high. Mission 3, the cost of mistakes. The mood had shifted. For the first 2 missions, there'd been professional distance. Operators watching a demonstration, interested but detached. Now something had changed. They were leaning in, asking questions, looking at Kira differently. Even Draven. His arms were no longer crossed. He stood with hands loose at his sides, body language open, the universal signal of someone who'd stopped defending and started learning. The range configuration shifted again. Kincaid and 2 assistants moved target boards, set up a scenario that mimicked urban hide sites. Distance 1,300 meters. The AI tablet showed new calculations. Wind minimal, temperature stable, clear line of sight, shot probability 91%, recommend immediate engagement. 91%, as close to a sure thing as long-range shooting ever got. Kira stood at the equipment table staring at those numbers. Her expression had changed, gone harder, more closed. The vulnerability from the previous story disappeared behind something that looked like armor. She was quiet for long enough that Kincaid almost asked if she was ready. Then she spoke. This one's different. This one's about failure. That got everyone's attention. Syria, 2021. I was 28, ISIS commander. Intelligence said he was coordinating an attack. Something big. We had narrow window to take him before he moved. She picked up the tablet. Those green numbers, 91%, high confidence. Our targeting system gave us the same kind of readout you're seeing here. High probability, good conditions, clear shot. The computer said take it. Command said take it. Everything said take it. She took a breath, let it out slowly. So I did. She set the tablet down, moved to the rifle. Her movements were different now, less fluid, mechanical, like she was forcing herself through motions she didn't want to make. 1,300 meters, ISIS commander standing in a window. I had the shot, had the numbers, had the green light. She settled behind the Barrett, found the target through the glass. What the AI didn't account for was a building fire 3 blocks over. Thermal rise from the flames created convection. Heated air rising fast created a vertical wind shear the sensors couldn't detect because they only measured horizontal wind. Her breathing wasn't as controlled now, slightly faster. The calm had fractures in it. I felt it. I looked at that readout and something felt wrong. My gut said, wait, check the conditions again. Take 30 more seconds. She paused. But command was in my ear. Window closing, target moving soon. Green light, take the shot, and that computer said 91%. Her jaw clenched. So I trusted the machine over my instinct, trusted the numbers over the feeling. She fired. The shot was deliberate, but there was something almost mechanical about it, going through motions. Downrange, the impact came 6 inches left of center, still on target, still a hit. But Kira didn't look satisfied. She cleared the rifle, stood. Her back was to the group when she spoke. In the real scenario I missed. The thermal shear pushed my round 8 inches left, hit the window frame instead of the target, splintered wood. He ducked, ran, got away. She turned. Her eyes were harder now. Something raw showed through, something that looked like it hurt to expose. Next day, the attack he'd been planning happened. Market bombing in Idlib. 7 civilians killed, 19 wounded. Her voice didn't waver, but it dropped to almost a whisper. 3 of the dead were children, sisters, 6, 8, and 11 years old. Their mother survived. I saw the photos. I read the after-action report. I know their names. The silence was crushing. Amira, Fatima, Layla. Those 3 girls died because I rushed, because I trusted 91% over the voice in my head that said something's wrong. She picked up a canteen, took a drink. Her hand shook slightly. Command wanted to bury it, classify it, move on, operational loss, acceptable risk, but I said no. She set the canteen down hard. I tell this story to every student I teach. The shot I missed, the children who died because I trusted technology over instinct, because I let time pressure override judgment. Her throat worked. Lesson 3 is the hardest one. It's not about being good. It's about accepting that you'll fail, that your failures have names and faces, that people will die and you'll have to see their pictures and know it was your fault. She looked at the AI tablet. The computer said 91%. That means 9% chance of failure. 9%. The computer treats that like acceptable risk, like statistics. Her voice went hard. But that 9% was Amira. 6 years old, loved soccer, wanted to be a teacher. That 9% was Fatima. 8, helped her mother cook, sang constantly. That 9% was Layla. 11, top of her class, took care of her sisters. She pressed her palms against the table, leaned on them. The AI doesn't carry that, doesn't see their faces, doesn't attend the funerals, doesn't wake up at 3 a.m. seeing those photos. We do. That's the cost of being human operators. We carry the weight of our misses. We remember, we learn, or we break. Draven's face had gone white. He looked like he'd been punched. Kira continued, that's why human judgment still matters, because we know what it costs when we're wrong. That knowledge makes us careful, makes us double-check even when command is yelling to fire, makes us trust our gut when the computers are too confident. She straightened. Since Syria, I've never ignored my instinct again. I've made 412 shots in training and operations, saved 37 lives directly, because 3 dead children taught me what 91% really means. The desert wind carried dust across the range. Nobody moved to brush it away. Finally, a voice from the back. Young Marine, barely old enough to buy beer. His voice cracked. How do you keep going after something like that? Kira looked at him, really looked, saw the question behind the question, saw someone who'd maybe missed a shot himself, maybe carried his own weight. She walked toward him, stopped a few feet away. Her voice was gentle now. You don't forget. You don't forgive yourself. Those options aren't on the table. She paused. But you use it. You let it make you better. You teach others so they don't make the same mistake. You work harder. Check more carefully. Trust your gut more than the machine. Those three girls haunt me every single day. I see their faces when I'm training students, when I'm making shots, when I'm deciding whether to fire or wait. Her voice strengthened. But since Syria, I've trained 347 students. Some of them have gone on to save lives because of what I taught them, because I learned from failure, because Amira and Fatima and Layla made me better at the worst possible price. She looked around at all of them. That's the bargain. You carry the dead, but you keep working so there are fewer dead to carry. You honor them by preventing the next tragedy, by being so careful, so thorough, so unwilling to trust machines over instinct that you never repeat the mistake. The young Marine nodded. His eyes were wet. Draven spoke suddenly. My brother Wyatt, his voice was rough. He died in a training accident 4 years ago. Equipment failure, they said. Everyone turned to look at him. I blamed the system, blamed integration, blamed everyone. He looked at Kira. But what you're saying, it wasn't about who they let in. It was about whether instructors actually taught, whether people learned before they deployed, whether someone cared enough to prevent the failures. His voice broke. Wyatt died because someone didn't do their job right. Someone cut a corner. Someone trusted equipment over checking. And a 22-year-old kid paid for it. Kira nodded slowly. I'm sorry about your brother. Yeah, Draven's jaw worked. Me too. He looked at her with new eyes. You're doing what I wish someone had done for him. Teaching for real, owning the failures, making sure the next person doesn't die from the same mistake. Silence fell again, but it was different now. Shared weight, shared understanding. Atwood checked her watch. 38 minutes elapsed. 3 scenarios remaining. She looked at Kira with concern. You need a break. No, ma'am. Kira's voice was steady again. Controlled. Back behind the armor. I need to finish this. Kincaid moved to reconfigure the range for the next scenario. The snipers were quiet now. The atmosphere had transformed. What had started as a demonstration had become something else. Something more personal, more real. A memorial service disguised as a training exercise. And every person there felt the weight of it. Mission 4 when systems fail. The range had been stripped bare. Kincaid walked the firing line systematically removing every piece of electronic equipment. The AI tablet, the laser rangefinder, the digital wind meter, the ballistic computer. Even the electronic earmuffs. He set it all on a table 30 feet back, out of reach. The message was clear and uncompromising. Kira stood looking at the bare setup. Her expression had changed again. The hardness from the Syria story melted away like ice under desert sun. Now she looked almost peaceful, like she was walking into familiar territory. Home ground, 1,800 meters downrange, the target shimmered in heat haze. Mosul, she said quietly. 2022, I was 29. Final mission with Gideon before... She stopped. Reset. Her voice steadied before everything changed. The snipers had pressed closer now. The dynamic had shifted completely. They weren't watching a demonstration anymore. They were watching something else. A last testament, maybe. A love letter written in ballistics and breathing. Kira picked up her rifle, checked it over with hands that moved like they were remembering. Like muscle memory was stronger than conscious thought. We were supporting a direct action raid. Gideon and I were Overwatch, 1,700 meters from the target building. Rooftop position, good sight lines, clear weather. She walked to the firing line. No measuring, no calculating. Just walked. Everything was going smooth, textbook operation. Assault team making entry. Gideon and I scanning sectors, calling targets. Standard Overwatch. She settled into position without the usual preparation. Just dropped into stance like water finding level. Then an EMP device went off. Not big enough to hurt anyone. Maybe basketball-sized, but big enough to kill every piece of electronics in a quarter-mile radius. Through the scope, the target shimmered. No rangefinder readout. No wind calculation. No digital assistance. Just glass and distance and the shooter's judgment. The sound it made wasn't loud, just a soft pop, like a champagne cork. But every screen went dark. Every radio died. Night vision fried. GPS dead. Ballistic computers black. Everything we'd been depending on just gone. Kira lifted her eye from the scope, looked at the gathered snipers. How many of you have ever made a shot completely without electronics? No rangefinder, no wind meter, no calculator, nothing. A few hands went up, maybe a quarter of them. How many of you could make an 1,800-meter shot right now with just your eyes and your brain? The hands dropped. All of them. Exactly, Kira said, because we've built a dependency. Technology is a crutch, a useful crutch, but it's still a crutch. And when it gets kicked out from under you, you better know how to walk. She turned back to the rifle. The raid team was inside when the EMP hit. Compromised, lights out, comms down, and they were taking fire, heavy fire. They needed support, and we had no tech to provide it. Her breathing slowed. Natural rhythm, 4-count inhale, 6-count exhale. I started to panic. I'm not going to lie about that. My brain went blank. I reached for the rangefinder, dead. Reached for the ballistic calculator, dead. Looked at Gideon. He was checking his rifle. Calm, always calm. She smiled slightly, sad. He looked at me, and his voice, God, his voice was so steady, like we were on a practice range instead of people dying. Her voice shifted, became an impression, deeper. He said, Kira, look at me. You know how to do this? I taught you how to do this without any of this gear. What's the first thing? Back to her own voice. I said, range estimation. He said, good, show me. Kira lifted her eye from the scope, held up her thumb, old school technique, mil-dot calculation using body parts as measuring tools. I held my thumb at arm's length, measured the target against it. E-type silhouette is about 5'8". My thumbnail at full extension subtends approximately 2 mils. She calculated aloud. Target appears 2/3 the height of my thumbnail. That's about 1.3 mils. Formula is target height in meters divided by mil reading times 1,000. 5'8" is about 1.7 meters, divided by 1.3 times 1,000. She paused, did the math. 1,300 meters, give or take 50. She looked at the students. That's how it was done for 100 years before laser rangefinders. You can range a target to within 5% accuracy using nothing but your hand. But how many of you were taught that? Silence. None of them. Gideon taught me, made me practice it until I could do it in my sleep. Said technology fails, batteries die, equipment breaks. Your hand is always with you. Back to the scope. Next was wind, no meters to tell me speed. Gideon said, what do you see? She pointed downrange. See that brush? Dust way it moves, that's about a 10-mile-per-hour wind. You learn to read it. Brush barely moving is 5 miles per hour. Swaying steady is 10, bending is 15, braking is 20 plus. Her hand moved to the elevation turret. Direction is west to east. Quartering into me, I can feel it on my right cheek. Smell the dust it's carrying. Wind doesn't just hit your face. It has texture, temperature. You learn to read it with your whole body. She started clicking turrets, counting aloud. 1,800 meters, 308 Winchester. Bullet drop at this distance is approximately 280 inches. That's 23.3 MOA with a 200-yard zero. Click, 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 counting. Windage, 10-mile crosswind, quarter value because it's not full value, so effective 5 mile. At this distance, drift is approximately 18 inches. That's 1 MOA. She settled back behind the rifle. Gideon talked me through every calculation, over the radio, while the building was getting shot to pieces, while rounds were snapping past his head. He kept his voice calm, kept teaching. Her eye pressed to the scope. He said, you've made this shot 100 times on ranges before computers. You know the holds. The math lives in your bones. Trust it. Trust yourself. I trust you. The snipers were absolutely silent, watching her work without instruments, watching what the craft looked like stripped to its skeleton. There was a fighter on a rooftop, 300 meters from the raid team, RPG launcher, about to fire into the building. I could see him clearly, could see his finger on the trigger. Oh, her own finger found the trigger. Pressure building, smooth, even. Gideon said, I see him too. You have the shot, no computer needed, just you and physics and everything I taught you. Fire when ready. The Barrett kicked. Kira rode the recoil, stayed on glass, downrange steel rang, clear impact. maybe 4 inches left of center, close enough to count at 1,800 meters without electronics. Kincaid's voice. Hit. Confirmed. Kira cleared the rifle, stood slowly. Her eyes were distant, seeing something other than the Yuma range, seeing Mosul, seeing Gideon. In Iraq, that shot dropped the RPG fighter, saved 6 raiders who were pinned in a stairwell. We worked that whole engagement without electronics. 14 targets engaged, 12 hits, just fundamentals. Just what Gideon had drilled into me over years of training. She pulled a small notebook from her pocket, worn, water-stained. The cover was green canvas faded to gray in spots, pages dog-eared and swollen from moisture and heat. He gave me this, his range book from 20 years of shooting. Every distance, every wind value, every correction for temperature and altitude and barometric pressure, and 100 other variables, all written by hand, all learned through repetition. She opened it carefully, like it was sacred text. Look at this. Every page, pencil marks, crossouts, notes in the margins. Wind felt stronger than it looked. Mirage deceptive in this temperature range. Don't trust morning thermals until sun fully up. She flipped through pages, showed them. 20 years of experience compressed into 150 pages. This is his brain, his accumulated wisdom, everything he learned from making shots and missing shots and nearly dying and actually living. Her voice cracked slightly. He said computers make you lazy, make you dependent. Said if you do the math yourself, if you write it down, if you calculate and recalculate until the numbers live in your bones, then when the computers die, you keep working. You survive. The lazy ones die. She closed the notebook, held it against her chest. I still use this, still add to it. Every shot I make, I write down the conditions and the results, building my own database, my own experience set, just like he taught me. Draven spoke quietly. Can I see it? Kira looked at him, considered, then walked over and handed it to him. He opened it gently, reverently, flipped through pages. His eyes widened. This is incredible. This is an entire education. That's the point, Kira said. The AI has millions of data points, but they're all abstract, numbers in a server somewhere. This notebook has maybe 3,000 shots, but they're mine. I was there for everyone. I felt the wind, saw the mirage, made the call, lived with the result. She took the notebook back. That's the difference. The AI knows everything and understands nothing. This notebook knows less, but understands more, because understanding comes from doing, from failing, from feeling the recoil and watching the impact and knowing in your gut what works. She looked at each of them. Lesson 4. Technology is a tool, a powerful tool, but it's not the craft. The craft is in here. She tapped us, the notebook. And in here, she tapped her head. And in here, she pressed her hand flat against her chest. When everything fails, and it will fail, you better have something inside you that doesn't need batteries. Atwood checked her watch. 51 minutes elapsed, 2 scenarios, and the final demonstration remaining. The tension had been building. Everyone could feel it. The missions were getting harder, more personal, moving towards something inevitable. Next scenario, Atwood said. Her voice was quieter now, more careful, like she was approaching something dangerous. Northern Iraq, 2022, 3 months before. She didn't finish, didn't need to. Kira's jaw tightened. She took a breath, let it out slow. Yeah, let's do this one. Mission 5, the impossible shot. The target moved downrange. Kincaid and his assistants set it at maximum range for the facility, 3,000 meters, just short of 2 miles, the kind of distance where bullets took 5 full seconds to arrive and gravity turned trajectories into desperate mathematics. The AI tablet came back. Numbers scrolled across the screen faster than eyes could track. Wind speed, direction shifts at multiple altitudes, temperature gradients, barometric pressure falling, humidity, elevation change, Coriolis effect at this latitude, spin drift compounding over distance. At the bottom in harsh red text, shot probability 1%, not recommended. Suggest alternative engagement method or air support. 1%. The computer saying don't even try. Kira stood at the equipment table, staring at that number. Her jaw was tight. Her breathing had changed. Faster, shallower, losing the control she'd maintained through 4 missions. Atwood moved beside her, spoke quietly enough that only Kira could hear. You don't have to do this one. We can skip to the final demonstration. You've proven the point. No, Kira's voice was hard, absolute, brittle. This one matters. This one is why I'm here. This is the promise. She picked up the tablet, looked at those calculations. 1% probability, the machine's way of saying impossible. Northern Iraq, 2022, May 14th, 3 months and 6 days before Gideon died. Her voice had gone flat, emotionless. The tone people use when they're keeping themselves together through sheer force of will, when feeling anything would break them. SEAL team pinned down, village clearing operation gone wrong, ambush, professional, coordinated. They were taking casualties. Command estimated they had maybe 5 minutes before they got overrun. She set the tablet down. Her hand was shaking. She pressed it flat against the table to still it. Enemy sniper on a ridge, 2,800 meters from our position. He had elevated position. Good cover. Clear sight lines to the whole kill zone. Every time our guys moved, he dropped them. 3 wounded, 1 KIA already. Kira moved to her rifle. Chambered around. The bolt clicked home with terrible finality. Conditions were a nightmare. Crosswind 30 miles per hour. Gusting to 40. Elevation change of 92 feet. Temperature rising as the sun climbed. Thermals chaotic. Mirage so thick, the target kept disappearing entirely. She settled behind the Barrett. Her movements were tight now. Controlled through visible effort. Our AI targeting system said the same thing you're seeing here. 1%. Mission impossible. Recommended we call for air support or artillery. CAS was 23 minutes out. Artillery was 15. Through the scope, the target sat at an impossible distance, wavering in heat mirage, dancing in crosswind, looking less like a target and more like a hallucination. The SEAL team didn't have 15 minutes. They had 5. Maybe. Her voice cracked, just slightly. Gideon was with that SEAL team. He was pinned down with them, taking fire. I could hear it over the radio, the snap of rounds passing close, the impact of bullets hitting concrete near him. That landed like an artillery shell. The snipers went rigid. Understanding crashed through them like a shockwave. This wasn't just another mission story. This was the story. The one that explained everything, the tattoo and the rifle and the notebook and the weight she carried like a cross. He got on comms. His voice was... She stopped, swallowed hard. His voice was calm, like always. Like we were on a training range instead of him being about to die. He said, Kira, I know what the computer says. I know what the numbers say, but I also know what you can do. I trained you for this exact moment. You can make this shot. Her breathing was ragged now, the control slipping like sand through fingers. I said, Gideon, it's 2,800 meters in impossible wind. 1%. He said 1% isn't 0%. And you're not average. You're my wife, my student, the best shooter I ever trained. Ignore the computer. Listen to me. She was crying now, silent tears running down her face, but her hand stayed steady on the rifle. He talked me through it, over the radio, while taking fire, while people were dying around him, while he could die any second. He spent his last ammunition of time teaching me how to make an impossible shot. Her hands moved to the turrets, clicking, counting, not following the AI's suggestions, following ghost instructions from 3 years ago, following a dead man's teaching. He said, Coriolis, at this latitude and distance, you're shooting east, northern hemisphere. Bullet drifts right. Calculate 2.3 feet. Add that to your wind hold. Click, click, click. Spin drift at this distance with this caliber right-hand twist puts you another foot right. Add it. More clicks. Elevation, 2,800 meters. You've shot this distance before. 987 inches of drop, 82 feet. Bullet has to arc higher than an 8-story building. Trust the math. She was narrating for the watchers, but also for herself, working through it again, reliving it, keeping him alive for these few minutes. Wind, 30 miles per hour, but gusting. Can't calculate gusts, baby. You have to read them. Wait for the lull. Watch the mirage. Watch the dust. You'll see it. You'll know I believe in you. Her eye pressed to the scope, watching, waiting, the tears making it hard to see, but she blinked them away. I watched for 90 seconds. Watched the wind flags. Watched the mirage patterns. Watched everything. Waiting for the moment when the chaos settled. Just for a heartbeat. Just long enough. The desert wind gusted, died, gusted again, like the universe breathing. Then I saw it, the mirage steadied, the wind dropped from 38 to 27. Holding, the flags hung for just a moment before the next gust. Her finger touched the trigger. Gideon's voice in my ear. I see the sniper. He's reloading. You've got maybe 10 seconds before he's back on target and one of us dies. Kira, I love you. I believe in you more than I've ever believed in anything. Make the shot. Pressure building. First stage. Second stage. The trigger wall. I fired. The Barrett roared. The sound rolled across the desert like the voice of God passing judgment. The recoil drove into her shoulder, and she absorbed it. Stayed on glass, watching through tears and sweat in the shimmer of mirage and heat haze. 5 seconds. 5 eternal seconds while a bullet traveled nearly 2 miles through hostile air. Through gusting wind and elevation change and atmospheric pressure and 100 variables that wanted it to miss. While physics tried to drag it down and wind, tried to push it sideways, and gravity tried to make it fall. 5 seconds while everyone held their breath, while Kira held her breath, while the ghost of Gideon held his breath. 1 second. The bullet climbing, arcing into impossible sky. 2 seconds. Reaching apex, fighting wind, fighting gravity. 3 seconds. Falling now. Descending toward Earth and target. 4 seconds. Still falling. Pushed by wind. Pulled by Earth. Spinning through air. 5 seconds. Then, impossibly, steel rang. The impact sound came delayed, echoing back across the distance like a message from God saying yes. Clear, pure, unmistakable. Kincaid's voice was stunned into barely a whisper. Impact. Center. Center mass. Confirmed hit. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just watched someone make a shot the computer said was impossible. A shot that probability said couldn't happen. A shot that defied every limitation of physics and equipment and human capability. Kira cleared the rifle. Her hands were shaking now. Not slightly. Violently. She set the rifle down before she dropped it. She turned. Her face was streaked with tears and dust. Her eyes were haunted. In Iraq, 2,800 meters, 30-mile crosswind, 90-foot elevation change. 1% probability I made that shot. Her voice was steady through sheer will. Enemy sniper eliminated. SEAL team extracted. 12 lives saved. She looked at each of them. Gideon was one of those 12. I saved his life that day. 3 months and 6 days later, he saved mine. But it cost him everything. The weight of it filled the desert air. Heavy as mountains. Real as death. Undeniable as time. Lesson 5, she said. The AI calculates probabilities based on averages. Based on what most shooters can do most of the time under normal conditions. But humans aren't averages, and combat isn't normal. She picked up the AI tablet. This says 1%. This says impossible. This says try something else. She set it down hard enough to make it bounce. But humans can do impossible things. When the stakes are high enough, when the training is deep enough, when someone believes in you enough to bet their life on your skill. Her voice strengthened. Gideon believed in me. Taught me not to trust limits. Taught me that 1% doesn't mean 0%. Taught me that sometimes you take the impossible shot because it's the only shot you have. Because people you love will die if you don't. She looked directly at Draven. Your brother, if he'd had an instructor like Gideon, someone who taught beyond the computer, someone who believed in human potential beyond the probabilities, maybe he'd still be alive. Then to the group. That's why human snipers matter. Because we can transcend the numbers. We can push beyond the probabilities into the realm of skill and will and desperate necessity. We can make the shots that algorithms say we can't, because we have to, because someone we love needs us to, because the alternative is unacceptable. Atwood's voice was soft, almost reverent. 68 minutes elapsed, one scenario remaining, then the final demonstration. Kira nodded. She looked exhausted, hollowed out. Like telling these stories was extracting something vital with each word. But she wasn't done. One more story, the hardest one. She took a shuddering breath, squared her shoulders. The vulnerability that had shown through closed back up. Not armor exactly, more like scar tissue, hard from healing badly. Last story, she said, the one that explains all of this. The one that explains why I'm standing here instead of teaching basic marksmanship at Coronado. Why this matters so much, it physically hurts. She looked at the rifle, Gideon's rifle, the engraving on the stock catching desert sunlight. True North GDT. This one's about the day I lost him and the promise that keeps me going. Mission 6, True North. There was no range configuration for this one. No target to hit, no distance to calculate. No wind to read, just Kira standing at the firing line, holding the rifle, looking at something distant that only she could see. The snipers had formed a semicircle around her. Close now, proximate, like witnesses to something sacred and terrible. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. They had to strain to hear. Iraq, 2022, August 17th. 2 years, 3 months, and 11 days ago. But I could tell you the hours, the minutes, the seconds, if you wanted. Her thumb traced the engraving on the stock. Over and over. Ritual motion. Grounding technique. Something to keep her hands busy while her heart broke. Gideon and I were running Overwatch for a village clearing operation south of Mosul. Intelligence said there were weapons caches. Suspected militia. Routine operation. We'd done 100 of them. She set the rifle down gently, sat down beside it, cross-legged in the dirt, the formal instruction posture gone. Now she was just a woman telling the worst story of her life. Intel was wrong. It wasn't routine. It was a trap. Ambush. Coordinated. Professional. They'd been watching our patterns, learning our tactics, waiting for the right moment. The snipers sat too, forming a circle, like kids around a campfire, waiting for a ghost story, not knowing they were in one. They waited until the assault team was inside the village, deep inside, committed. Then they hit from 3 sides. RPGs, machine guns, snipers, the works. Her hands were shaking again. She pressed them against her knees. Gideon and I were 700 meters out. On a ridge, good position. We started dropping targets immediately, suppressing fire, buying time for the team to get to cover. The wind carried dust across the range. Nobody moved to brush it away. We were working perfect, like always. He'd call targets, I'd engage, then switch. I'd call, he'd engage. Years of working together, of being together, of finishing each other's sentences and knowing each other's breathing rhythms. She smiled slightly. He used to say we were one operator in 2 bodies, that I knew what he was thinking before he thought it, that we were the most lethal 2-person element in JSOC because we operated like one mind. The smile faded. Then I saw movement, flank position we'd missed, northern edge of the village. Sniper, setting up on the assault team's rally point, had good angle, would tear them apart. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. I called it to Gideon, started to rotate my rifle to engage. But his angle was better. He was closer. Better shot. She stopped, breathed. The air seemed thick, hard to pull into lungs. He shifted to take the shot, but the enemy sniper saw him move, saw the scope glint maybe, saw something, and he fired first. The silence was absolute. Even the wind seemed to stop, the desert holding its breath. The round was coming for me, center mass trajectory. I was the closer target, better angle for the enemy. His natural shot. Her voice cracked completely. Gideon saw it, saw the muzzle flash, saw the angle, saw where it was going, and he moved. Tears now, open, unashamed, falling into the dust. He stepped directly into the path, stepped between me and the bullet, deliberately, consciously, chose to take the hit. Someone in the circle made a sound, involuntary, like a gut punch. It hit him high right chest, missed the plate entirely, went through his lung, clipped his subclavian artery. The kind of wound that bleeds out in minutes if you're lucky, faster if you're not. She wiped her face roughly, smearing dust and tears together. He went down. I was on him before he hit the ground. Combat medicine, everything I'd been trained to do. Pressure on the wound, airway management, position to slow bleeding. But the blood, God, the blood, it just kept coming, pulsing with each heartbeat. Hot, so hot, soaking through gauze faster than I could pack it, soaking through my gloves, my uniform, the ground. Her hands moved unconsciously, pressing against her own chest, miming the motions of trying to save him. I couldn't stop it, couldn't even slow it. I tried everything, but nothing worked, nothing helped. He was conscious. For 4 minutes and 12 seconds, he was conscious, looking at me, trying to talk, drowning in his own blood, but trying to talk. She closed her eyes, remembering, unable to not remember. I kept working, kept trying to save him. But he grabbed my wrist. This wrist. She held up her left arm, the compass tattoo visible, stark against her skin. He grabbed it so hard I thought he'd break it, pulled me close. His voice. She had to stop. Breathe, continue. There was blood in his throat, bubbling, but he forced the words out anyway. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He said, Kira, stop. Stop trying. We both know I'm done. Someone in the circle was crying, maybe more than one. I said no. Said I could save him. Said hold on. Said help was coming. Said all the lies you say when someone's dying and you can't accept it. But he just looked at me, and his eyes were so clear, so calm, like he'd already accepted it, like he'd made peace the moment he stepped into that bullet. Her voice strengthened slightly. He said, I need you to listen. Need you to promise me something. Promise me you'll keep teaching. Promise me you won't let the craft die. Promise me you'll pass on what I taught you. Promise me my death means something. She opened her eyes. They were red, raw, devastated. I tried to tell him I'd save him, that he'd be fine, that we'd teach together, that we'd grow old and boring and retire to Montana like we'd planned. But he knew. He knew he was dying, could feel it happening. So he just smiled, actually smiled, and said, You're my compass point, Kira, my true north. You'll find the way. You'll show others. Just promise me. Please. Her throat worked. So I promised. Through tears, through blood, through the sound of gunfire and the smell of his life leaking out. I said yes. I'd teach. I'd pass it on. I'd keep the craft alive. I'd make his legacy matter. He said, Good, that's good. I love you. Remember that when it gets hard. Remember I chose this. Chose you. Would do it again. Always. The tears were flowing freely now. From Kira, from several snipers. Even Draven had wet eyes. Then he just stopped. His hand went loose on my wrist. His eyes went empty. 4 minutes and 12 seconds. That's how long I had him. That's how long he held on to make me promise, to make sure I understood, to give me purpose so I wouldn't break. She lifted her left wrist, showed them the tattoo. This isn't decoration. This is where he held me, where his blood marked me. I got the tattoo 6 months later. Over the mark, to remember, to honor, to carry him. Compass rose, because that's what he called me. His compass, his true north, the thing that oriented him when everything was chaos. She set her wrist down. I carried his body back, 6 kilometers, under fire, alone. Wouldn't let anyone else touch him. Wouldn't leave him behind. Carried him until my legs gave out. Then crawled, then dragged, then carried again. Got him home. The desert wind picked up, hot, dry, carrying the smell of sage and distance. They gave me medals, commendations, Bronze Star with Valor, Silver Star, all of it. But all I wanted was him back. All I wanted was to rewind 5 seconds and step into that bullet myself. Let him live. Let him teach. Let him matter. She looked up at them. I spent 18 months after that just existing, not living, existing, teaching basic marksmanship at Coronado, going through motions, empty, hollow, waiting to die or feel something, whichever came first. Then Commander Atwood called, told me about this, about the AI proposal, about the threat to human sniper programs, about how they needed someone to prove that what Gideon taught what we do, what he died believing in, that it still matters. She stood slowly, picked up the rifle, held it like it was precious. And I realized, this is it. This is how I keep the promise. This is how I make his death mean something. This is how I prove that his 15 years of mastery, his sacrifice, his belief in teaching, in legacy, and human excellence, that it wasn't for nothing. This rifle killed 107 enemies in his hands. In my hands, it's killed 89 more, but that's not what matters. That's not his legacy. She looked around the circle. His legacy is every technique he taught me, every lesson, every bit of knowledge, every moment he spent making me better instead of easier. And now I pass it to you, to the next generation, so the craft survives, so his sacrifice means something. So that 200 years from now, someone makes a shot and doesn't realize they're using a technique that Gideon Thorne developed, because it's just become how it's done. She looked directly at Draven. Your brother Wyatt, he deserved an instructor like Gideon, someone who taught for real, who cared about mastery more than completion rates, who understood that every student represents someone's life saved or lost in the future. Then to all of them. That's lesson 6, the final lesson. This isn't about kills. It's not about stats or records or proving who's better. It's about legacy, about passing knowledge to the next generation, about making sure good people don't die from lack of training, about teaching so well that your students outlive you and outshoot you and make you obsolete. That's victory. That's immortality. Machines don't understand legacy. They don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand that teaching is how we achieve eternity. That knowledge passed on outlives any of us, that the craft is bigger than the individual. Her voice strengthened, became almost fierce. Gideon is dead, but everything he taught me is alive, in these lessons, in the students I've trained, in you if you listen, in every person who learns to read Mirage instead of trusting computers, in every operator who makes an impossible shot because someone believed in them. That's victory. That's what matters. That's why we're here. Not to prove I'm better, but to prove he was better, and that his better can be passed on, can live, can grow. She took a shuddering breath. So when they ask me to prove that human snipers still have value, when they ask me to demonstrate why we can't be replaced by algorithms, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for him, for the promise I made while he died in my arms, for every operator who ever taught someone something that kept them alive, for Gideon Thorne who chose to die so I could live to teach. The silence that followed was cathedral quality, sacred, heavy with meaning. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. The weight of her story sat on all of them like a physical thing. Finally, Atwood spoke. Her voice was hoarse. 74 minutes elapsed. Time for the final demonstration. She looked at Kira with something that might have been awe, or grief, or recognition of someone who'd paid a price beyond calculation. You ready? Kira wiped her face one last time, squared her shoulders. The vulnerability that had poured out for Mission 6 closed back up like a door slamming shut. Professionalism returned, armor back in place, the operator instead of the widow. But everyone had seen underneath now, had seen the case, the weight, the why. Yeah, Kira said, her voice was steady. Let's finish this. Let's prove it mattered. Let's keep the promise. She chambered around in Gideon's rifle. The sound echoed across the desert like a bell tolling, like a promise being kept, like true north being found one last time. Mission 4, when systems fail, the range had been stripped bare. No AI tablet, no rangefinder, no wind meters or ballistic computers. Just a rifle and open sights and 1,800 meters of desert air between shooter and target. Kincaid had removed all the electronic equipment from the firing line, set it on a table 30 feet back, out of reach. The message was clear. Kira stood looking at the bare setup. Her expression had changed again. The hardness from the serious story had melted away. Now she looked almost peaceful, like she was walking into familiar territory. Home ground. Mosul, she said, 2022. I was 29. Final mission with Gideon before... She stopped. Reset. Before everything changed. The snipers had pressed closer now. The dynamic had shifted completely. They weren't watching a demonstration anymore. They were watching something else. A memorial, maybe. A testimony. Kira picked up her rifle, checked it over with hands that moved like they were remembering. We were supporting a direct action raid. Gideon and I were Overwatch, 1,700 meters from the target building. She walked to the firing line, settled into position without the usual preparation. No measuring, no calculating, just muscle memory. Everything was going smooth. Then an EMP device went off, not big enough to hurt anyone, but big enough to kill every piece of electronics in a quarter-mile radius. Through the scope, the target shimmered. No rangefinder readout, no wind calculation, no computer assistance, just glass and distance and the shooter's judgment. Our targeting system went dark. Radio's dead, night vision fried. Everything we'd been depending on just gone. Kira's breathing slowed. Old rhythm, 4 count in, 6 count hold. The raid team was inside when it happened. Compromised, taking fire. They needed support, and we had no tech to provide it. Her eyes stayed pressed to the scope, but her voice continued, teaching even while preparing to shoot. Gideon got on the rifle next to me. His voice was calm, always calm. He said, Kira, you know how to do this. I taught you how to do this without any of this gear. Trust yourself. She lifted her eye from the scope, looked at the target with naked vision, held up her thumb, old school ranging technique, mil-dot calculation using body parts as measuring tools. Target appears about this tall against my thumbnail at arm's length. I know an E-type silhouette is about 5'8". I know my thumbnail sub-10's about 2 mils. Math says She paused, calculating. 1,800 meters, give or take 50. Back to the scope. Wind, no meters to tell me speed. So I watch. She pointed downrange. See that brush? The way it moves, that's about a 10-mile-per-hour wind. See how the dust lifts and carries direction as west to east. Quartering into me, her hand moved to the scope turret. Clicking, counting. 1,800 meters, 10-mile crosswind, 308 Winchester. Need about 12 moe windage. Elevation is 260 inches of drop at this distance. 22 MOA with a 200-yard zero. She settled back into the rifle, found her breathing rhythm again. Gideon talked me through every calculation. Reminded me what he'd taught me on ranges before computers, before all the gear. Just fundamentals, just math and observation and trust. The snipers were silent, watching her work without instruments, watching what the craft looked like stripped down to its bones. He said, you don't need the computer to tell you what you already know. You've made this shot 100 times. You know the holds. Trust it. Her finger found the trigger, steady pressure, building. I fired, watched the trace, saw the bullet arc across that gap between me and the target building. The Barrett kicked. Kira rode the recoil, stayed on glass. Downrange steel rang, clear impact. Maybe 3 inches left of center, close enough to count. Kincaid's voice, hit, confirmed. Kira cleared the rifle, stood slowly. Her eyes were distant, seeing something other than the desert range. In Mosul, that shot dropped an enemy fighter on a rooftop, saved 3 raiders who were pinned in a hallway. We worked that whole engagement without electronics, just fundamentals, just what Gideon had drilled into me over years. She looked at the gathered operators. Lesson 4 is simple. Technology is a crutch, a useful crutch, but it's still a crutch. When it fails, and it will fail, you better know how to walk without it. She picked up a small notebook from her gear bag, worn, water-stained, pages filled with handwritten calculations and sketches. Gideon gave me this, his range book from 20 years of shooting. Every distance, every wind value, every correction for temperature and altitude, and 100 other variables. All written by hand, all learned through repetition. She flipped through pages. He said, computers make you lazy, make you dependent. But if you do the math yourself, if you write it down, if you calculate and recalculate until the numbers live in your bones, then when the computers die, you keep working. Kira closed the notebook. I still use this, still add to it. Every shot I make, I write down the conditions and the results. Building my own database, my own experience set. She held it up. The AI has millions of data points, but they're all abstract. Numbers in a server somewhere. This notebook has maybe 3,000 shots, but they're mine. I was there for every one. I felt the wind, saw the mirage, made the call. That's the difference. The AI knows everything and understands nothing. This notebook knows less, but understands more. Draven spoke up. His voice had lost all its edge. How long did it take to build that kind of fundamental knowledge? Kira smiled slightly, sad. Gideon spent 15 years building his. I've got 12 years building mine. You don't rush mastery, you accumulate it, one shot at a time, one lesson at a time, one failure and success at a time. She set the notebook down gently, like it was precious. And you share it, you pass it on, so the next generation doesn't start from zero. Atwood checked her watch. 51 minutes elapsed, 2 scenarios and the final demonstration remaining. The tension had been building. Everyone could feel it. The missions were getting harder, more personal, moving towards something. Next scenario, Atwood said. Her voice was quieter now, more careful. Northern Iraq, 2022. 3 months before, she didn't finish. Didn't need to. Kira's hand went to her wrist. The compass tattoo. Pressed hard enough that her fingertips went white. Yeah, she said softly. Let's do this one. Mission 5, the impossible shot. The target moved downrange. Kincaid and his assistants set it at maximum range for the facility. 3,000 meters, just short of 2 miles. The kind of distance where bullets took 5 seconds to arrive and gravity turned trajectories into prayer. The AI tablet came back. Numbers scrolled across the screen. Wind speed, direction, temperature, barometric pressure, humidity, elevation change, Coriolis effect, spin drift. At the bottom in red text, shot probability 1%. Not recommended. Suggest alternative engagement method. 1%. The computer was saying, don't even try. Kira stood at the equipment table, staring at that number. Her jaw was tight. Her breathing had changed. Faster. Shallower. Atwood moved beside her, spoke quietly. You don't have to do this one. We can skip to the final demonstration. No. Kira's voice was hard. Absolute. This one matters. This one is why I'm here. She picked up the tablet, looked at those calculations. 1% probability. Northern Iraq, 2022, May, 3 months before Gideon died. Her voice had gone flat, emotionless. The tone people use when they're keeping themselves together through willpower alone. SEAL team pinned down, enemy sniper on a ridge, 2,800 meters from our position. Crosswind 30 miles per hour, gusting to 40, elevation change of 90 feet, temperature rising, thermals chaotic. She set the tablet down. Our AI targeting system said the same thing you're seeing here. 1%, impossible. Recommended we call for air support or artillery. Kira moved to her rifle. Chambered around, the bolt clicked, home with finality. But air support was 20 minutes out. Artillery was 15. The SEAL team was taking casualties. They had maybe 5 minutes before they got overrun. She settled behind the Barrett. Her movements were different now. Tight, controlled, like she was holding something back by sheer force. Gideon was on the radio. He was with that SEAL team. He was pinned down with them. That landed like a bomb. The snipers went rigid. Understanding crashed through them. This wasn't just another mission story. This was the story. The one that explained the tattoo and the rifle and the weight she carried. He got on comms. His voice was... She stopped, breathed. His voice was calm, like always, like we were on a training range instead of him being about to die. Through the scope, the target sat impossible distances away, wavering in heat mirage, dancing in crosswind. He said, Kira, I know what the computer says. I know what the numbers say, but I also know what you can do. I trained you for this. You can make this shot. Her breathing was ragged now, the controls slipping. He talked me through it, over the radio, while taking fire, while people were dying around him. He helped me calculate. Her hands moved to the turrets, clicking, counting, not following the AI's suggestions, following something else, memory maybe, or ghost instructions from 3 years ago. Coriolis at this latitude and distance, 2.3 feet right, spin drift, 1 foot right, wind, 30 miles per hour but gusting. Can't calculate gusts. Have to read them. Wait for the lull. She was narrating for the watchers but also for herself, working through it again, reliving it. Elevation, 3,000 meters. Bullet drop is 987 inches, 82 feet. The bullet has to arc higher than an 8-story building. Her eye pressed to the scope, watching, waiting. Gideon said, I see the sniper. He's reloading. You've got maybe 15 seconds before he's back on target. Kira, I believe in you. Make the shot. The desert wind gusted, died, gusted again. I waited, watched the mirage, watched the wind flags, watched everything. Waited for the moment when the chaos settled. Just for a second. Just long enough. Her finger touched the trigger. It came. Wind dropped to 28. Steady, no gust. I had maybe a 2-second window. Pressure building. First stage. Second stage. I fired. The Barrett roared. The sound rolled across the desert like thunder. The recoil drove into her shoulder and she absorbed it. Stayed on glass, watching. 5 seconds. 5 eternal seconds while a bullet traveled nearly 2 miles through hostile air. Then, impossibly, steel rang. The impact sound came delayed, echoing back across the distance, but clear, unmistakable. Kincaid's voice was stunned. Impact, center mass, confirmed hit. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They just watched someone make a shot the computer said was impossible. Kira cleared the rifle. Her hands were shaking now, not wide but visible. In Iraq, 2,800 meters, I made that shot. Enemy sniper eliminated, SEAL team extracted, 12 lives saved. She stood, turned. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. Gideon was one of those 12. I saved his life that day. 3 months later, he saved mine. But it cost him everything. The weight of it filled the desert air. Heavy, real, undeniable. Lesson 5, she said. Her voice was steady again, but it cost her. The AI calculates probabilities based on averages. based on what most shooters can do most of the time. But humans aren't averages. She looked at each operator. Humans can do impossible things when the stakes are high enough, when the training is deep enough, when someone believes in you enough. Her hand found the compass tattoo. Gideon believed in me. Taught me not to trust limits. Taught me that 1% doesn't mean 0%. Taught me that sometimes you take the impossible shot because it's the only shot you have. Draven's face had gone pale. He looked like he was seeing Kira for the first time, really seeing her. She continued, "That's why human snipers matter. Because we can transcend the numbers. We can make the shots that algorithms say we can't. We can push beyond the probabilities into the realm of skill and will and desperate necessity." She picked up the AI tablet. "This tool is valuable, but it's not gospel. Sometimes you have to ignore what it tells you. Sometimes you have to trust 15 years of training and the voice of someone who believed in you even when the math said no." Atwood's voice was soft. 68 minutes elapsed. One scenario remaining. Then the final demonstration. Kira nodded. She looked exhausted, hollowed out, like telling these stories was pulling something vital from her with each one. But she wasn't done. "Last story," she said, "the one that explains all of this, the one that explains why I'm standing here, why this matters so much." She looked at the rifle in her hands. Gideon's rifle. The engraving on the stock catching sunlight. True North GDT. "This one's about the day I lost him and the promise I made." Mission 6 True North. There was no range configuration for this one, no target, no demonstration. Kira just stood at the firing line, holding the rifle, looking at something distant that only she could see. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. The snipers had to lean in to hear. "Iraq, 2022, August. 2 years ago, Gideon and I were running Overwatch for a village clearing operation. Intelligence said there were weapons caches, suspected militants, routine operation." Her thumb traced the engraving on the stock over and over, nervous gesture or ritual. Intel was wrong. It wasn't routine. It was a trap. Ambush. Coordinated. Professional. They waited until the assault team was inside the village. Then they hit from 3 sides. The desert wind carried dust across the range. Nobody moved to brush it away. Gideon and I were 700 meters out, on a ridge. We started dropping targets, suppressing fire, buying time for the team to get to cover. Her breathing had gone irregular. We were working well, like always. He'd call targets. I'd engage, then switch. I'd call. He'd engage. Perfect coordination. Years of working together, of being together. She stopped, breathed, continued. Then I saw movement. Flank position we'd missed. Sniper, setting up on the assault team's position. I called it to Gideon, started to rotate my rifle to engage. Her jaw clenched. Gideon was closer, better angle. He shifted to take the shot. But the enemy sniper saw him move, fired first. The silence was absolute. Even the wind seemed to stop. The round was coming for me. I was the closer target. Center mass trajectory, kill shot. Her voice cracked, just slightly. Gideon saw it, saw the muzzle flash, saw the angle, and he moved, stepped directly into the path. Tears now, silent, falling. Bullet hit him in the chest, high right, missed the plate, went through his lung, clipped his subclavian artery. She set the rifle down gently, like it might break. He went down. I was on him immediately. Combat medicine, pressure, airway, everything I'd been trained to do. But the bleeding, I couldn't stop it, couldn't slow it. It was too much, too fast. Her hands were shaking now, full tremors. He was conscious. For 4 minutes he was conscious, looking at me, trying to talk. She closed her eyes. I kept working, kept trying to save him. But he grabbed my wrist, this wrist. She held up her left arm, the compass tattoo visible. He grabbed it hard, pulled me close. His voice was, there was blood in his throat, but he forced the words out. Kira's voice dropped to almost a whisper. The snipers pressed closer, straining to hear. He said, "Kira, stop, stop trying. We both know." A sob tried to escape. She swallowed it, kept going. "I need you to listen, need you to promise me something." His grip on my wrist was so tight, like he was anchoring himself. "Promise me you'll keep teaching. Promise me you won't let the craft die. Promise me you'll pass on what I taught you." She opened her eyes. They were red, raw. I tried to tell him I'd save him, that he'd be fine, that we'd teach together. But he knew. He knew he was dying. He said, "You're my compass point, Kira, my true north. You'll find the way. You'll show others. Just promise me." The tears were flowing freely now. So I promised. I said yes. I'd teach. I'd pass it on. I'd keep the craft alive. He smiled, actually smiled, said, "Good, that's good. I love you. Remember that when it gets hard." Her voice broke completely. Then he just stopped. 4 minutes and 12 seconds. That's how long I had him. That's how long he held on to make me promise. She wiped her face roughly. I carried his body back. 6 kilometers, under fire, alone. Wouldn't let anyone else touch him. Wouldn't leave him behind. The weight of it sat on everyone, heavy, crushing. They gave me medals, commendations, Bronze Star with Valor. But all I wanted was him back. All I wanted was to rewind 4 minutes and step into that bullet myself. She looked up at the gathered operators. I spent 18 months after that just existing, teaching basic marksmanship, going through motions. Empty. Then Commander Atwood called, told me about this, about the AI proposal, about the threat to human sniper programs, about how they needed someone to prove that what Gideon taught what we do still matters. Her hand pressed against the tattoo. And I realized, this is it. This is how I keep the promise. This is how I make his death mean something. This is how I prove that his 15 years of mastery, his sacrifice, his belief in teaching, that it wasn't for nothing. She picked up the rifle again, held it like it was precious. This rifle killed 107 enemies in his hands. In my hands, it's killed 89 more. But that's not what matters. What matters is that every technique, every lesson, every bit of knowledge he gave me, I'm passing it on. To you, to the next generation. So that the craft survives. So that other operators benefit from his mastery. She looked directly at Draven. Your brother Wyatt, he deserved an instructor like Gideon. Someone who taught for real, who cared about mastery, who understood that every student represents someone's life in the future. Then to the group, that's lesson 6, the final lesson. This isn't about kills. It's not about stats or records or proving who's better. It's about legacy, about passing knowledge to the next generation, about making sure good people don't die from lack of training. Machines don't understand legacy. They don't understand sacrifice. They don't understand that teaching is how we achieve immortality. That knowledge passed on outlives any of us. Kira's voice strengthened. Gideon is dead, but everything he taught me is alive, in these lessons, in the students I teach, in you if you listen. That's victory. That's what matters. She took a shuddering breath. So when they ask me to prove that human snipers still have value, when they ask me to demonstrate why we can't be replaced by algorithms, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for him, for the promise I made while he died in my arms, for every operator who ever taught someone something that kept them alive. The silence that followed was cathedral quality, sacred, reverent. Atwood spoke softly. 74 minutes elapsed. Time for the final demonstration. She looked at Kira with something that might have been awe. You ready? Kira wiped her face, squared her shoulders. The vulnerability closed back up. Professionalism returned. Yeah, let's finish this. The shot heard forever. They moved the target, all the way down range. Maximum distance the facility could support. 4,000 meters, 2.4 miles. The kind of distance that made the earlier shots look reasonable. The AI tablet displayed new calculations. More complex, more variables. Wind at multiple altitudes. Coriolis at extended range. Extreme bullet drop. At the bottom, shot probability less than 1%. Extreme conditions, not recommended. Less than 1%. The computer saying this was beyond impossible. Atwood addressed the group. Original test was 3,600 meters. But that's not enough. We need decisive proof, so we're changing parameters. She looked at Kira, then at Draven. 2 shots. Petty Officer Thorne shoots alone. Pure human judgment. Then Staff Sergeant Draven shoots with full AI assistance. Whoever gets closer to center mass wins the argument. Draven's eyes went wide. Ma'am, You're one of the best shooters here, Sergeant. You represent the AI-assisted future they're proposing. Kira represents traditional mastery. This is the test. Draven looked at Kira. Something passed between them. Respect, understanding. I'll do my best, he said. I know you will, Kira replied. The range went quiet. This was it. Everything had built to this moment. Kira moved to her rifle, Gideon's rifle, the one that carried his legacy. She opened the action, checked the chamber one final time, then she stopped, frowned, looked closer. A brass shaving, tiny, barely visible, caught in the chamber. The kind of debris that could cause a misfire, or worse, a catastrophic failure. She held it up. Anyone been near the rifles in the last 20 minutes? Kincaid's face went hard. There was a civilian contractor, range maintenance, who said he was checking equipment. Understanding crashed through them. Sabotage. Someone wanted Kira to fail, wanted the AI program to look better. Draven stepped forward immediately. I saw him, didn't think anything of it. I'll file a report, get him identified. But Kira just calmly cleared the debris. Checked the rifle thoroughly. It's fine. This is exactly why we verify equipment. Fundamentals include not trusting anything. She looked at the group. Lesson continues even now. Always check your gear. Always verify. Complacency kills. Then back to the rifle. Business as usual. She settled into position. The Barrett felt familiar, like an extension of her body. All those hours, all that training, all of Gideon's teaching compressed into muscle memory. 4,000 meters, she said calmly. Wind 25 miles per hour. Gusting to 30. Temperature 118. Barometric pressure falling. Elevation change 60 feet. Her hands moved to the turrets. Bullet drop at this range is approximately 1,150 inches. 96 feet. 3-story building worth of arc. Clicking, counting, calculating. Coriolis effect. 2.7 feet right. Spin drift. 1.2 feet right. Total windage accounting for wind Coriolis and spin 88 meter. Well, she was teaching even now, showing her work, making the invisible visible. But that's static calculation. What the AI does. What I need to do is read the real-time conditions. Her eye went to the scope, started reading mirage in zones. Near mirage shows 22 miles per hour. Mid-range shows 27. Far range shows. Wait. She lifted her eye, looked at Draven. Wind shift, 2 o'clock, you see it? Draven looked downrange, studied the dust, the brush. His eyes widened. Yeah, I see it. Wind backing, coming more from south now. Good eye, Sergeant. She adjusted. 1 minute of angle. This is collaboration, human plus human, reading what sensors can't measure. Back to the scope. Breathing slowing, 4 count in, 6 count hold, natural pause. The moment when the body stills, when the world narrows. When physics and skill and will converge. For Gideon, she whispered. Finger on trigger. Steady pressure. Smooth. The Barrett erupted. The crack rolled across the desert like judgment. Recoil brutal. She wrote it, came back to glass. 5.1 seconds. The bullet climbing, arcing, falling. Subject to every force nature could throw at it. The entire range held its breath. Then, steel rang, clear, pure, unmistakable. Kincaid's voice cracked slightly. Impact. Dead center. Perfect hit. The snipers erupted. Cheering, disbelief, awe. Kira had just made a shot that defied probability. That proved everything she'd been teaching. But she didn't celebrate, just cleared the rifle. Made it safe. Stepped back. Your turn, Sergeant. Draven moved to the AI-equipped rifle. His hands were shaking slightly. The pressure enormous. He settled in. Let the AI calculate. Numbers scrolled across his display. Optimal holds, corrections, everything computed. He took the shot the computer recommended. The impact came 1.2 meters left of center. Good shot, excellent shot actually, but not perfect. The AI had gotten close, but human judgment had won. Atwood stepped forward. The demonstration is complete. Human judgment informed by experience and intuition surpasses algorithmic calculation. The case is made. She looked at the Navy observers, senior brass, decision makers. Recommendation: integrate AI as support tool, but maintain human operators as primary. Train fundamentals first, technology second. One of the observers nodded slowly. Agreed, we'll draft new protocols. Thorn protocol, human AI integration with human judgment paramount. Kira's shoulders sagged slightly. Relief, victory, the weight shifting. She'd done it, kept the promise, saved the craft, made Gideon's legacy matter. Draven approached, extended his hand. I've never seen anything like that. Thank you for teaching us, really teaching us. She shook his hand. Thank you for being willing to learn. He hesitated. Would you, uh, would you stay co-teach with me, build this program together? Kira looked surprised, then thoughtful. Yeah, I think I'd like that. 6 months later, the Naval Precision Warfare School at Seabrook Base gleamed in morning sun. New facility, new program, born from 90 minutes in the desert. Kira stood at the front of a classroom, 24 students, male and female, young and experienced, all there to learn the Thorn Protocol. Draven co-taught. The dynamic worked. He brought tactical application. She brought fundamental mastery. Together they were building something neither could alone. On the wall hung Gideon's rifle. Under glass, a plaque reading "On loan still gets used." Because it did. Every graduate fired it once, learned what mastery felt like, understood the legacy. After class dismissed, Atwood appeared. You have a visitor. An older woman stood in the doorway, late 60s, gray hair, kind eyes marked by grief. Eleanor Thorne, Gideon's mother. Kira's breath caught. She hadn't seen Eleanor since the funeral, since the burial, since everything fell apart. Mrs. Thorne, I didn't know you were coming. Eleanor stepped forward. Her expression was complicated. I've been angry, Kira. Angry that you survived when my son didn't. Angry that he chose to save you. Angry at everything. Kira's throat tightened. I understand. I'm angry too, every day. But I attended your graduation ceremony today. Watched you teach. Watched those young operators learn from you. Learn from what Gideon taught you. Eleanor's eyes were wet, and I saw him. In your hands, in your voice, in the way you corrected that boy's grip. That was Gideon teaching through you. She opened her bag, pulled out a small wooden box. I've been holding on to these. Couldn't bear to look at them, but they should be with you. Are inside Gideon's dog tags, his original compass, the one that inspired Kira's tattoo. He'd want you to have them, to carry them, to remember that his legacy isn't dead. It's alive, in you, in your students. Kira took the box with shaking hands. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, just keep teaching. Keep passing it on. Keep him alive the only way that matters. They embraced. Two women bound by loss and love and the memory of a man who believed in legacy. Later, as sunset painted the Pacific in orange and crimson, Kira stood on the observation deck. Alone. She held Gideon's compass. The brass was warm from her hand. The needle still pointed true north. A young female sniper approached. 19. Nervous. Instructor Thorne. Kira turned. Yeah. How do you handle the pressure of carrying his legacy? Kira smiled. Actually smiled. You don't carry it. You share it. Every person you teach, every technique you pass on. The legacy gets lighter, gets distributed, lives in more people. She looked at the compass. Gideon gave me this years ago, told me to always find true north. I thought he meant navigation, but he meant purpose. Teaching is my true north now, passing knowledge, making sure good people don't die from lack of training. That's how I carry him. That's how I honor him. The young sniper nodded. Will you teach me? Really teach me? Yeah, walk with me. I'll tell you about a shot he taught me in Mosul, about reading Mirage when systems fail, about why fundamentals matter. They walked into the sunset together, teacher and student, legacy continuing. In the distance, new students practiced on the range, learning holds, reading wind, building mastery one shot at a time. The craft lived, the knowledge flowed, the promise was kept. And somewhere maybe Gideon smiled, knowing his teaching hadn't ended with him, knowing true north had been found, knowing the work continued. The statistics appeared on screen, white text on black. Thorn Protocol, 247 snipers trained in 6 months, 0 training fatalities. Human AI integration, 34% better accuracy than AI alone. 91% better judgment calls in complex scenarios. Final image, Kira's compass tattoo in close detail. The inscription visible around the edge. True north, find yours, pass it on. The words Gideon had whispered in those final 4 minutes. The directive that became her mission. The legacy that refused to die. She'd made the shot, but more importantly, she'd kept the promise. And in the end, that was what mattered.